This is part 2 of the Lor'Avvu descriptive audio comic. In this audio, I will describe pages 7 through 12 of the introduction to Act 1 of Lor'Avvu, a fairy story for mature humans. Let's pick up right where we left off. In a wide but short panel that is mostly black, the trembling, elongated shadow of a small bony hand merges with the silhouette of the boy's elbow. Now the old woman gently holds the child's arm, her own crossing under his chin, keeping his body from moving behind the rock. His eyes are wide, and 3 short lines indicating surprise jump from his face. The two are in the middle of our view, but behind them we can see the gestures of one shorter child and one taller child looking on, their small forms lit by the fire between them, and the scene of the woman and boy. In the foreground, a massive black shape describes the ground, the great rock, and the Fantush Tallrat sticking up above the top of the rock. "Come away, child, back to the warm fire. The dark reveals no mystery by itself." 3 figures are framed in a tall panel. 2, the faces of children in expressions of wide-eyed surprise, and behind them, the well-lit body of the old woman looming supportively, her necklace resting in the shadows of her collarbones. The left child must have been the curious one. "It's real," he utters, while the other child stares through their slightly shaggy bangs in wonder. From within the fire we gaze up at the turtle belly of the Tallrat. All is awash in bright heat, but the sparks of the fire intermingle with the sky. "Behold me, I am great," says he, attached to no visible supports of any kind, as the creature moves above us, lit from below. All around we can look up at children's chins or faces numbering around 8, their jaws dropping and some of them perhaps even frightened. What is this?
How does it fly?
A silhouette or shadow in the shape of the Tallrat can be seen either superimposed on or through the haze of the fire. Adding to the mystery of this shape, he seems to have grown in size to almost equal the height of the old man, who holds up his staff like an inverted club and leans back from the long lick of fire tickling the smoke. In blackness near, a few children's heads huddle low and look up the top of the flame at the imposing being. One child's eye follows the shadow, their mouth agape. "I come from a faraway world," says the shape, an arm and a couple beanbag legs flapping upward while dancing beads add to the effect. "Oh, come off your theatrics, turtle man," says the old man. We can see one long mustache point, though the rest of his face is hidden. His hat might almost be a helmet in his warrior stance, leaning back from the fire with the commanding clutched fist in the air. The old man strides in the manner elders do, from left to right, but with his tight fist now leaning on the top of his staff, and his other arm folded and hand cupped to cheek, which is pushed to his palm by a waggling toothy smile. The eye close to his palm actually seems open, while the other is not only squinted, but is shut tight in a wink. He is lit up, and his back is to the big rock as he gets past it. "I've encountered him before. Actually, he's from a nearby planet," he confides. One child stands among 3 other children huddled in concern, their arm extended straight up to an accusatory pointing finger. "Mars!" They charge, jaw dropped so far that it's gone sideways, their other hand in a fist and their muscles tensed for action. Past the children, a wall of smoke billows through the air. "Pluto," says a puny child below the tense child, their eyes in shadow as they look up. Another leans across the tense child, eyes narrowed, and feeling corrective, opines that "Pluto isn't even a planet, dummy." The 4th just stares with a slack mouth. In a patch of air where stars do not twinkle as they do in the distance around it, the shadow of the Tallrat dances its body upside down and apparently hops on invisible ground atop his tiny magic staff. The now diminutive shadow wiggles and says, "Put, old man, this is you." 10 or so children huddle with various expressions of worry or even sadness at the very bottom of the panel looking up. The old man in shadowy foreground thoughtfully holds his lips between forefinger and thumb and squints towards the shadow. "I'm scared," says a voice. One child has picked up a machete-like implement from the ground and displays it crossly, exclaiming, "I'll kill it." "Now wait, listen to Grandpa," says a voice. "No, there's nothing to fear at all. Only this fire is a little hot, says the old man, leaning upon his staff. Now the old man grapples the side of the large rock, he and it both alit by a great light from the fire. He waves most of the stick from behind the rock, comically threatening the tall rat, who is now standing atop as if having surmounted the boulder. It leans away from the waggling staff. "Do you mind if I just sit right here while you tell them about your world?" inquires the old man. "No, on the world Hey, I can't fly when you wave that," says the skull-headed being. "We two-leggeds have here some magic, if not as strong as in your more spirits-roam-free world, strange as it is." We are on the side of the rock with the left in darkness and the right in firelight. The old man's aged and wrinkled back is slightly spotted. We look at him from behind as he holds the stick like a bat and leans it at the tall rat, who faces away from the fire and jiggles the baubles on its wand. "My world strange? Your world doesn't even have colorful two-leggeds." A child on the other side of the firelit face of stone stands and unintentionally vaunts their claim. "Creature, there are weird people on this planet who are bright white." The Fantouche being stands on the rock in full view. Its wands as baubles appear to be round elements wrapped in ribbon or string. The claw bones of its right arm sac point upward as if displaying a cascade of tiny ancient rib bones, while from the same arm dangle a few bead-ended strands, seem to unsuccessfully untangle themselves. The tiny crown of delicate bones is reflected in a rough flare of coarse hair or fine teeth protruding around the base of the skull, which is tucked into the turtle shell, as if in admonishment. "No, not just brown and black and red and yellow and white like humans, but blue, green, bright orange, and gray like ash." The old man's voice intercedes. "Oh, so they put ash on their face." Poof! In a swift motion, the old man's arm is craned, his hand in a flicking configuration. A cloud of ash emits from his hand, covering the tall rat, who stammers, "No, The old man could be viewed as expressionless as he lands this trick directly into the tall rat's face, once more casually holding the top of the staff like a laver. The children's voices cover this panel with laughter as the black eye pits and small triangular nostrils of the ash-brightened turtle skull show a deliberate stillness. Small puffs of ash dissipate in the air. In the foreground, the old man seems to have shrunk as he hunches with both arms upon his staff in the left shadow of the rock. His cheeks are inflated. Above and behind him the tall rat shakes, its limbs all flapping like a dog's ears, spreading the ash in small clouds about his blurred body. "How dare you! Humph!" he seems to say in a rage. "Help me out, grandmother," coughs the old man. The old woman appears next to the old man, elbowing him in the upper arm, supercilious worry written on her shaded brow and pouting lower lip. "You were telling us about your people, Turtle?" The old man somehow concentrates all his formality into a glance from beneath his own raised eyebrow, though not as clearly focused on any one thing. "Oh, yes," he says. His hands are crossed at the wrist, as if confined to the staff by a tie, and a flicker of sparks shoot from off-panel. The tall rat twists in a gesture of excitement, the arm sack with the wand pointing up and the other pointing ahead, though it could easily be where it loosely wound up, as the tall rat's head turned sharply. "I mean, oh yes," says the tall rat. "The two-leggeds are odd with their many types. Among my people there are only two kinds." The old woman's pear-shaped body leans into the space of the celery-like old man's crackling fire in the foreground. A silhouette on the right describes two extended rabbit-like ears coming from the hanging tall rat's shape, looking slightly impaled by the wand cast down from him from above the rock. "The man attracted to women, and the woman attracted to men," says the shade. The old woman, in a friendly grimace towards the old man, says, "Attracted may be a strong word for it on your planet." "Hey," he whispers. "Not you," she replies. The Fantouche tall rat poses almost coyly above the rock, twinkling stars in the distance behind him. He continues, "And that is all. Nothing else exists. We are more perfect than you two-leggeds who unfortunately also live close by my people on my world, too." "Oh?" exclaims the old woman. Four of the children, their faces lit from below, look skeptically, squint, or fold their arms at the creature's display of intolerance. The old woman leans over the children, her arms akimbo, and thrusts her strong chin into the light. She comically narrows her eyes as if making a shrewd comment. "So, This turtle creature is bigoted." Meanwhile, the old man stands with his arms before him, united at the top of his staff, with a relaxed grip, his arms and staff seeming to form a fence between the fire behind us and the bulging rock behind him, atop which the tall rat slowly swings with limp limbs. The relief of his hat is highlighted by firelight, as well as some hairs on his upper torso and slight contours of the man's ribs through aged skin. His face rests in a slight frown that he might not be aware of. "Well, I think we can all agree we've all seen a gay turtle now and then. What do you do with your own people's children, those that don't belong in your harsh dichotomy?" "You wouldn't like it," the tall rat utters. Now the old man turns his back to the fire and with his right hand lifts the stick slightly from its neck. His body casts a large shadow up the face of the rock to the place the tall rat stands, with legs spread just above the creeping shade. "Tell us anyway," he tells the tall rat. From the same perspective, the old man is hunched in startled surprise, and his hat hovers above a wide bald spot on his otherwise hairy head. His flinching right elbow has tucked close to his body, raising the stick a bit. A gap of light between his hat and head creep in either side of his hunched shadow form on the rock. "We kill them!" celebrates the tall rat, limbs, ears, beads, and all, flaying over the rock in a hideous display of sudden excitement. 4 children close to a great curl of fire that whips above their heads stare through the glow and smoke above. 3 children behind them sit or stand oddly in pregnant pause. Sparks from the fire dance in the air to reveal a haze in the air below a sparse starfield. 1 child with overgrown hair is leaning around another so that just a bit of their chest, shoulder, and face are in the firelight. In the shadow-ridden ledge some distance from the fire, the spying children smile, point, and try to contain their amusement at the somber reaction of the huddled children. In the shrunken background, children lean on one another around the fire as the old man tilts his head at the darker space above the rock, over which the tall rat dangles, and says, "Yes, it is very sad." The plume of smoke has tapered to a point as the fire wafts off a puff of heat. Above the rough surface of the boulder, the tall rat leans close and thrusts a claw ahead, its small jaw agape. "But nature isn't meant to be confused about our roles," says he. "We must always remember its laws. There is only man and woman." From behind the tall rat's silhouette before a fat squiggle of fire, with some children's heads about it, we can see that the column of material attached to his seat leads to a spider-like mechanism of strings and joints behind the rock. "And they must love each other and produce only more women," he continues. In a reverse of the view, we see wavy, heated air around the lit boulder and the front of the tall rat, now appearing to simply be hovering in the bright air, pointing his staff out, as if signaling to the old woman whose shadowed back we see close by the heads of children before the crackling fire. "And more men," the creature concludes, leaning in from off-panel, directing his wand and its shaking baubles at the old man, who stands somewhat awkwardly looking up at him. Through the heated air above a glow of fire, we can see the face of the boulder, the dusty earth, and a few sprigs of trees. In a close-up of the tall rat's skull, we see through his left eye socket to the hole of his right eye socket, showing the arm of the old man behind, who peeks around the skull with a smile. His thin, bushy eyebrows curve skeptically above his visible eyes as he says, "You said the rainbow folk don't follow this, and yet they thrive well and cover your planet and overrun the borders of town." The old woman authoritatively leans over a handful of bare-backed children, her breasts sagging in a powerful wall of flesh, and waves her pointing arm in the air in a shaming gesture. "And they have dominated your people and eat them for lunch and dinner," she says, while the children look on, seeming to wonder who will get the better of this discussion. "Well," comes the weak reply above the rock, fire diligently flying from the ground. The tall rat bends over his rock as if searching for a response, the sharp points of his turtle shell back pointing out to the smoke behind and around him. "This means nothing, he stammers, his arm sack with wand casting an impotent-looking shadow to his left, and his right arm in a shy and futile plea for attention. "Allow me to explain." A shining rubbery squid with strings trailing from hidden features waves its tentacles in the air above a startled-looking tall rat with its jaw firmly closed. The smoke is shaded by their presence, creating a dramatic scene as the squiddy moppet exclaims, "It's true! They eat us! They eat us!" From the edge of the ledge, pouting children's heads in the spy camp look skeptically on the huddle of children who now stand and lean even closer to one another before the small pool of light and flame. Even from behind, the old man is clearly showing surprise, with his body in a star shape, staff point in the earth, and fingers of his free hand splayed. Behind the boulder, tranquil plants sprout above a darkened hill. In the distant darkness, a thin line of clouds cover the base of the sky. "Shush, you squid!" says the shadow of the tall rat, who leans helplessly in the direction of the moppet. "No, you shush! I will not be quiet! Your law is stupid!" The shadow of the moppet is saying, arms still splayed like the old man's fingers. "And furthermore, you're not right about the rainbow people. Not right at all!" The squiddy moppet shies from behind the rock, its two rubbery tentacles lowered to its bulging eye level. Its fat triangular head and tentacles glimmer subtly from the firelight. The tall rat's back pattern almost appears woven as he softly leans with arrogant consternation to his left, and wielding the wand like a club declares, "Don't you see? It's nature's law, not ours. It's the only way. We must destroy them because—" "Hold," adds the voice of the old woman. From behind and looking up past the fire, we see the old woman's arm in light as she touches her wrinkled face in hunched conspiracy with the children's heads engaged with the activity above the rock, where the entire tall rat shakes as its wand beats the soft head of the dumbfounded squid. "Whap, whap, 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 whap." The old woman says in a mock hush, "I want to hear more from the squid, wouldn't you, children?" One child, clearly oblivious of their nakedness, stands over the others with her arms bent in disapproval of the violence. "Yes!
More from
yes!
the squid!
Squid! The crowd of rallying children exclaim in a fit of humor, disapproval, and chastisement. The tall rat hugs his upper shell in an apparent attempt to cross his arms, as the squiddy moppet before him wiggles and raises her tentacles descriptively. "Our world is even larger than all the earth, and it has even a bigger ocean than 5 copies of your world together." A shadowed head and gesturing small hand are before the fire, which altogether somewhat block our view of the old woman as she raises her arms in the gesture of flying a kite. She smiles as the squiddy moppet appears to fly above the scene. "Do you have proof of this?" she asks. The squiddy moppet floats like a balloon, its tentacles hanging in the air. In our near view, the old man stands near the large rock as, with his left arm, he indicates his behatted head, on his face an expression of mischievous calm, and with his right arm he clutches the top of his staff with gusto. He has formed a tripod with his squatting legs and staff, whose shadow merges with the dark of the earth behind him. "I do," he says. "Well," says the old woman. A meeting held in shadow, the old woman frowns at the leaning old man, whose right arm penetrates the void behind the boulder. "The squid has to come with me," whispers the man. "Why, just bring it out," responds she. "Don't destroy the magic, Grandma. Please, the squid." He hushes back, his loincloth sticking out like a diaper as he carefully lowers the top of his old body. "Oh," says the old woman, her face turning to the light in an expression of realization. Her funny nipples peek out from behind her hands, clutching curved strings near her wrinkled bosom, bark-like arms wrinkled more than her loincloth. Sitting among the obedient child audience as they lean around each other to see the activity, the old woman seems to merely watch as the floating squiddy moppet slowly chases the old man's gesturing finger through the air. "Follow me, Miss Squid Woman. I think your proof is behind this rock," says the old man from behind the boulder. The tall rat is improbably poised like the old man as it rests on its wand and sack legs that could not possibly support its weight. From above, the old man's arms appear to disappear past a great crescent of shadow describing the rear of the rock. Immersed in the shadow of the boulder, the old man squints. His eyes hide in deep shadow, and his mustache upturns slightly as his face unfolds into a tight-lipped, self-satisfied smile. The puppets at the top of the rock look down and behind the rock, the squiddy moppet drifting half below it and muttering, "Ah, yes, thank you, Grandma, human Grandpa." The smoke parts, billows lit by the gaping wide flames licking our view, as the squiddy moppet presents a flat circular object wrapped in bands and fastened to 2 sticks that appear to hold it up. The moppet's face is cast in shadow by their own tentacles, which reach up to the tablet as if supporting or touching it to confirm its reality. "Here it is," she says. Closer still, we see the shadows of all that is occurring in its space, dancing on its face. The tablet has an intricate spiral of written characters carved into its surface, which can be seen through the spindles of material that chaotically wrap and protect it. The moppet gestures toward the tablet as a black sky of stars shrouds everything past the edge of the fire's smoke. They continue, "This is the tablet of the Lor'Avvu." What?
Wow,
what does it say? Ask the children in wonder. From below a spike of fire, we see shadows of children leaning towards the display, a wide-eyed child, a child with head cocked attentively, and across the fire the boulder atop which the tall rat is looking up. The squid is shoving its tentacles into the air, and the tablet is suspended by its two very long sticks. "It says," begins the squid. The squid's blank eyes bulge from its head as it barely touches the silhouette-enveloped circle tablet, bright fire framing the composition. The puppets hover just above the rock, the tall rat patiently turned to the squid, whose upturned tentacles rest on the rock in a gesture of exhaustion. The stars in the background are subdued by the light on the sky and on the tablet, still supported as it is by its two long wooden spindles. "I can't read it either," the moppet concludes. The children laugh. This completes Part 2 of the introduction to Act 1 of Lor'Avvu. Grumjema. This is how you say "the spirits call" and "goodbye" in Old Lore, a Jinnar fairy language. May we be in good company with good fairies. Next time, we will learn some of what the tablet might say if it were translated to English, and we'll hear the conclusion to the introduction. Be well.